I am a huge fan of martial arts cinema, especially those involving the mystical arts of spiritual boxing and Taoist magic, and I am always interested in things related to those films. I'm also a fan of board games drenched in theme. I love when a game enhances its already solid mechanisms with great art, an interesting setting, captivating emergent narrative, and a chance for the players to really get into the characters and scenarios on the table. So you might say that Ghost Stories was tailor-made for me. Throughout this review, you will see some images from a few of the following films. And if you want to explore these kinds of movies, this is a good launching point. Spooky Encounter, aka Encounter of the Spooky Kind, Mr. Vampire Trilogy, Kung Fu from Beyond the Grave, Kung Fu Zombie, Rigor Mortis, Spiritual Boxing, Boxer's Omen, A Chinese Ghost Story 1, 2, and 3, New Mr. Vampire, Holy Flame of the Martial World, and Buddha's Palm. Based upon movies like Mr. Vampire, A Chinese Ghost Story, Boxer's Omen, Spiritual Boxer, Spooky Encounters, and other martial arts films filled with hopping vampires, ghostly vixens, and Taoist wizards, Ghost Stories perfectly captures the essence of its theme and includes interesting mechanisms with tough choices and deadly consequences. These kinds of martial arts films are often incredibly frantic and crazy, as they usually feature a small group of heroes defending a villa or a group of hostages from an onslaught of Chinese ghosts and demons. Steeped in Chinese mythology, these films depict magical spells and the mystical arts of spiritual boxing, and so too does the game. Initially, I was concerned that the game would not offer the same frantic pace of the movies on which it is based, but I am happy to report that my fears were unfounded. The game is a perfect representation of those films, and it uses its theme like an old master uses his fists and talismans to control corpses. This is not a game on which a theme has been thoughtlessly grafted. Rather, Ghost Stories is a perfect marriage of its thematic elements and mechanisms, an example of form and function. Ghost Stories is basically a tower defense style game. In the game, each of the players takes the role of a Taoist monk. The players must work together to defend a hapless village from a seemingly never-ending assault of dark and deadly spirits. Each turn, a new threat is introduced, oftentimes triggering a chain reaction of additional threats. And with each passing turn, the tension rises and the suspense builds. The players will be tasked with putting out a dozen fires with only a couple of buckets, buckets with holes, buckets without handles, and buckets with cursed water that actually cause more fire. The players can take advantage of the village resources by visiting a Buddhist temple, drinking a cup of magical tea, offering up a prayer, or by employing the village guards to help push back the advancing demons, among others. But as the ghostly numbers begin to pile up, the village becomes haunted, thus removing the powers of the individual village spaces. The game takes a great deal of planning, tactics, and strategy, and you will have to adjust your plans at a moment's notice, and yet it still feels fast, action-packed, and exciting. During each turn, a player must accomplish something beneficial. One wasted turn or one single mistake can be all it takes to see the village overrun and totally haunted, thus ending the game. Ghost Stories is a very challenging game. I've owned the game since 2008 and I've only won it a very small handful of times. However, it is still a blast to play. The games are short enough that it never feels as though a lost game is wasted time. Rather, it feels like training, like preparing for the next match. This is, again, a way that the game strengthens its martial arts theme. Ghost Stories quickly became one of my favorite games when it was new, and it has continued to be so over the years. While I don't play it as much as I used to, it is still a game that I think of often and one that I think of fondly.